Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Jazz Tangcay, Senior Arts Editor at Variety. And before we're joined by our guests today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a non-profit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $7 million in COVID relief to more than 7,500 performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. And thank you for your support. Now, without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce actor Penelope Cruz. Hello.
Hi. Hello. How are you? Nice to see you.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. And I wish we could do this in person, but maybe next time we'll do this.
I hope so. Yes.
But I am so excited to dive into your incredible career. So, Penelope, take us back. You have had such a remarkable career, but you actually started off doing ballet for a while, right? But where did that begin? Your love for dance and wanting to do that?
So it began because I was a child that was very active, and I was only quiet when I was sleeping, and in class and everywhere I was and acting in front of the family, forcing them to sit down and watch me every Saturday and Sunday, and just a lot of energy that my parents, who are very wise, realized that I needed to do some sport. And they asked me, what do you want to do so we can channel this energy? And I chose ballet because I had seen some images of Anna Pavlova, and I was always listening to classical music, and I saw some ballet somewhere, and I asked them to take me to classical classes. And I went once, and I said, that's it. This is what I want to do, because this is a place where I realized I could also act. And I was 4, but I realized that when I was there, not only was I exercising and sweating and getting tools to channel my energy, but also I was acting. And that was actually what, through the years, made me make that decision of, I want to try to be an actress. It was because of what I was feeling when I was doing different characters in the ballet classes. And when I was 4, I was asking the teacher to let me be Carmen. And she was looking at me like, what a freak. What do you understand about Carmen? But I was always fascinated by, that kind of material.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to ask you now that, when you were 4, you wanted to play Carmen, is that still out there? Are you putting that out there as a...
I would love to do that character someday, maybe even a musical of that. Now I did a photo shoot with Pedro, and Pedro was the photographer, and it is for W, and it's gonna come out any day. And actually he invented this story. We were in El Deseo, his production company, and we were rehearsing for a version of Carmen. So probably he will never do a version of Carmen, but it was really cool to see in which direction he would go if he did that.
You've set a light bulb off in him, and watch this space. In 5 years' time, we'll be talking about you and Pedro and Carmen. But we talked about when did the transition to acting happen? Where did that begin?
When I was around 13, 14, I went to an agency because I wanted to do some commercials, and I wanted to contribute to pay my ballet classes because I was doing more and more hours. And I also wanted to go to a theater school. So in the morning I was in my normal school, and then the afternoons I was either dancing or doing theater classes. So that's how I convinced my parents. I said, I want a little bit of independence, and I want to do some commercials if I get selected in the castings, so I can contribute to pay my classes. They were a little scared about it, but they let me do it, and I'm very grateful for that. I did get some jobs there, some commercials. In some of them I had to dance, and some of them were like jobs as a model. And then one day I saw in my theater school, I saw a number for Katrina Bayonas, my agent, who's still my agent today. And I read that she was testing people to represent more new actors. So I went to her office and I lied about my age, of course. She knew I was lying. She sent me home, but I came back the week after. She sent me home again, and I came back the week after. And that third time, she asked me to work with her. And she's still my agent.
And the rest is history. You met Pedro when you auditioned for Kika, right? But he had already, been making films. What was your impression of him as a filmmaker before that audition?
I was totally obsessed with him already at that age. I was like 17, 18 when he called me to see me for Kika, because he saw Jamon and Belle, Epoque, my first two movies. And I was very lucky that those two movies and those two characters were like night and day, so different from each other. And both movies were good. So I was very lucky. And they opened a lot of doors. And one of the doors was Pedro. He saw the movies and he called me. And then, of course, he said, "You are too young for this." And it's true, I was too young for that role. And then he said, I will write you a character that will fit you like a body. And I thought, I don't know, maybe people say that. Do they do it? Do they forget about you? I didn't know. I didn't expect anything. And then 2 years later, he called me for the role in Lifeless. And I love that character. I mean, it's the 10, 15 minutes that open the movie. I play a prostitute that is giving birth in a bus, and the other actress was Pilar Bardem, who later in life became my mother-in-law. So it was kind of an incredible rehearsal of life, even if I had never had to give birth in a bus, fortunately.
What was it? We'll talk about Jamon in a bit, but like with Lifeless, what was it about this script and this character that stood out for you?
I thought the script was great. It was this very like film noir thriller feeling, and he has not done that before. He had done so many other genres, but not that. And I love the character because it was like one more step into doing something very different from myself, very different from the first movies that I did. I had to create this woman, this way of walking, of talking, of like, and was a really, really big opportunity for me, even if it was just a few minutes in the movie.
Yeah. And you talked about, your early roles in Belle, Epoque and Jamon, which are such iconic films, like, and they are black and white, the characters. Like, talk about your experience there just as a young actress on these, on two completely different movie sets, and like what you took from one experience to the next, and then going on to ultimately, eventually like an Almodóvar set. Like, as you're growing as an actress, what were you learning along the way?
So Jamon was, I had not worked before. I mean, in my theater school, I studied 4 years. So I was used to, work with a lot of plays of great authors. So I was young, but I was able to identify if what I was reading was good. And I read that script and I felt this is really modern. And this movie 30 years from now is still going to feel really modern and risky and new. And Vigas had an incredible eye, a great visionary, really, really special, particular. And the role was very sexy, like maybe like older than my age. But then Belle, Epoque, I had to play 4 or 5 years younger than I was. And a very innocent girl, very fresh, very surprised by everything. And that movie was great. And the movie ended up winning the Oscar for Best Foreign Film. So it was a beginning that was very strong because being part of those films. And I thought, really, is it going to be like this? But at the same time, I was terrified because I felt maybe they are the first and the last. What if this never happens again? And I felt so happy on the set. It was not about the fame, for example, that arrived there. For the first time in my life, I was having contact with that, dealing with the positive or negative comments, like what it is to be exposed, no, to the public, to the audience. But what I was afraid of was losing the feeling that I experienced on set. I felt that I was part of something that I loved. And I felt, this is where I want to be. I belong here. And I cried so much the days that we wrapped, because it was a big possibility that I maybe would never be on the set again. I didn't know.
Wow. Over the years, you and Pedro, that relationship evolved. And, when he wrote Volver, I was reading that initially he wanted you to play he wanted you to play a different part, but then he decided he rewrote the script with you, mine as Raimunda. Like, does he talk to you like when he's evolving a character, or does he just call you and say, Penelope, I have a script and I want you to I want you to play this part? Like, talk about your relationship with him.
He tells me the 2 times that he has written for me were Volver and Parallel Mothers. And he told me, and with Volver, he didn't say anything about the story, and he just showed me the script when it was finished, and I could not believe it. What an incredible present, no? Great gift that he was giving me with his trust. What a perfect script. And then with Parallel Mothers, when he called me in the middle of lockdown and told me, I'm writing for you. And it was like incredible news for me. And also to hear that he was writing, because he was at home, like everyone else. And I was worried for him, because I know when he's creating, he's happier, and he decided to write nonstop. And he told me what it was. And I remember, because 20 years before, he shared with me the basics of Parallel Mothers. And at that point, he was talking to me about the character of Anna. And I love every character in that film, but I have to say the character of Janice always stayed with me. Like all of those years, I never asked him, Pedro, when are you gonna do that? But I always secretly hoped that he would do that movie.
Yeah, and he did. And we are so gonna talk about Parallel Mothers, but what is your process, when you get a script, like in bringing a character to life, like, and crafting her?
So I love that process so much. It gives me so much happiness. When I'm with Pedro, I prepare with him. Or when I'm with a director that wants to rehearse and that will block that time and ask you to do it like together, not to prepare in a separate way by yourself. But so many times you have that freedom to prepare by yourself. And I don't judge, like both systems can be great, and rehearsing, not rehearsing, 10 takes, 2 takes. I adapt, because there is a reason why they would decide, one way or another. But if I don't do that with a director, like when with Pedro, we rehearse 4 or 5 months, like in Parallel Mothers, I block that time and I prepare by myself, or I prepare with my acting teacher, Juan Carlos Coraza. I had a teacher many years, the beginning of my career, Cristina Rota. I went to theater school 4 years and prepared many characters with her, and she's great. And now with Juan Carlos Coraza, I don't know, for the last 20 years, most of my characters I prepare with him. I go to the school and we try things, make mistakes. Like there is space to try everything. And I love going there and feeling like the student that I am, the students that we are, no? All actors. We're never going to get to a place where we have things under control or we know everything there is there to learn. Impossible, because it's learning from life, from people's behaviors, from the mystery of the complexity of human behavior is never ending, no? It's starting by understanding your own self. Never ending process.
You made such an incredible transition working, you were established when, in Europe as an incredible actress, and then you make the move into the American film industry as such, working with Stephen Frears in the high-low country. Like, talk about getting that call from Stephen and making that leap. What do you remember?
So I was extremely obsessed with Dangerous Liaison, with John Malkovich, with Glenn Close, Michelle Pfeiffer, Uma, like what they all did in that movie and what he did as a director. I thought it was such an incredible dance. It was the perfect movie. Actually, like very close to that, Valmont also came out, Milos Forman, and everyone was thinking one is going to be great, the other one is going to be bad. Both movies were great. But I had an obsession with Stephen Frears' film, and also pretty much with the Grifters and a lot of his work. So when he called me to do a test for his film, I couldn't believe it, because it was really like one of the people that I wanted to work with. It was a big dream. So I did the audition in Madrid, in Katrina's office, and he saw it and he came to Madrid and offered me the part. And that's how I began working in America with my two-way ticket. I was going there. I spoke very little English. I was working with a dialect coach and basically like knew my dialogue and just how to say a couple other things. And I was kind of suffering in the rehearsals and the round tables, like the meetings with all the actors, because I don't like missing anything. I'm a little bit of a control freak. So for me, it was very hard to be, in the first few movies where I didn't speak English, try to keep up with everybody and understanding what was happening in the rehearsals. And most people were very patient and generous with that. And other times I just had to go and hide in the bathroom and cry and then come out and say. And when I kept studying and doing my intensive English classes, because before that I always did French, so I started English really late.
Yeah. I mean, that's such an incredible story, because this is a group of your peers, fellow actors. Talk about what advice would you give to them, in overcoming that, that fear and conquering, finding that confidence to do that. What advice
in those moments when I felt that much insecurity to the point of having to hide and cry and feel like wanting to pick up the phone and say, okay, I'm going back, I can't handle this, to let that moment pass and say, okay, maybe 2 hours from now, I'm going to feel a little different and something will happen, or somebody will look at me in a way that will mean, relax, I'm here, we're with you, we know what you're going through. And just, I felt so lucky, to have the opportunities of being like working there also, and in my country and other places in Europe. And I trusted that I was not going to feel like that all the time. But insecurity is like something that we need as actors. It comes with it because we depend on other people to be able to do our job. We cannot do it alone at home or in an office. I love that so much about this profession, that is a job that works when you are a team and when you see the other person, when you value the other person, when you're there for each other, either in cinema or in theater. It is like that. We cannot do this job alone. But at the same time, it is true that as actors, we depend on other people's trust, and that will be a mark on us forever. Like you start your career like that, and that feeling will accompany you I think for me, for the rest of my life. The feeling every time I begin a new movie, is this the time when I'm gonna be fired? It's like such a weird, scary fantasy. I don't want that to happen. But it is a real fear so many times.
So Penelope, I'm going to ask you about this next movie, 9. And working on a musical with Rob Marshall. I mean, talk about that whole experience, your prep for it? Because it kind of calls back to, like, you know, we were talking earlier about your ballet, the dancing, the performance. This is an all-encompassing role. So how did that happen?
So I was a huge fan of Rob Marshall. And of course, I always wanted to do a musical. And I hope I can get to do many more. When I met Rob and I saw that after a couple of casting sessions, he and the team thought that I could sing, I thought they were joking. And of course, we trained with great teachers for many months. But Rob gave me a lot of confidence, because I never felt more scared than having to sing and dance at the same time. And it was really great news when I got the role of Carla, because, you know, I was in love with that character. And we didn't know who Guido was. And then when he called me one day and he said, "Oh, by the way, it's Daniel Day-Lewis." I mean, I could not believe it, because what an incredible actor. And the way that I met him when we started the rehearsal process, I mean, it could not be better, because I walked into the stage in Pinewood in London, and I saw a man sitting there far away in a suit. I didn't even know it was him, because he was not supposed to be there that day. It was for my rehearsal. And I said, "No, that is Daniel. Did you say hello?" "Daniel? Why is Daniel here?" "Hi, Daniel, nice to meet you." And immediately he starts talking to me with his Guido accent, dressed as Guido. And he told me, "No, I'm actually going to be part of all of your rehearsals and everybody. I'm just going to be here all the time." All the time. I mean, through the 4 months that I was rehearsing my musical number, do you know what it was to have him there? Not every day, but maybe 80% of the time. To have him there as Guido and also as Daniel, you know, like the generosity that sometimes when you feel like you cannot do it, and like my hands were bleeding from the ropes, and he was there with a hug or with a smile or with a joke, because he has an incredible sense of humor. And it was an incredible experience to work with him, and the work with Rob and John, who are the masters, you know, of a lot of things, but really the masters of musicals. How much did I learn from them, and how much I enjoyed every second of the work with them, and with all my colleagues, with all the other women, especially Sophia Loren, who, you know, I take the chair every day next to her for lunch, because I just wanted to hear all her amazing stories and ask her about Mastroianni and De Sica and all the incredible directors that she's worked with, and ask her about her as a woman. And she opened herself to me in a way that, you know, I consider her a friend. She's been so generous and kind to me. And she was always worried about 2 things with me. Every day at lunch, she thought I was not eating enough. But everyone around me thinks I eat very healthy, more than enough. But she always thought it was not enough. And every day she would remind me, like, don't wait too long to have children, because you're going to be very happy when you do that. And I have incredible memories of these conversations with her about children. She was 70 something when we shot, and she was always telling me, "My kids call me every day." Like that is the biggest success, you know, in her life. Yeah. I love that woman so much.
Oh my gosh, what an experience, and what a memory. And, you know, to see that, I mean, what was different for you, like, between working on, you know, a Spanish film set versus an American, you know, set? And you were like, you know, you were established now within both film industries. Like, talk about that experience and the differences you were observing.
So I feel very lucky, you know, to have this career in my country. And also I've worked in France, in Italy many times, in America many times, and to be able to to be part of the different industries that at the end of the day are part of one same industry. Because in America, I've done films that are maybe like big studio, huge crew, big budget, and that changes the rhythm of things. And when it's justified and it's necessary, you know, like it's great to be part of a movie like that and see what that dynamic is, you know, like that way of doing film. For example, I've been part of Pirates, and I've learned so much from, okay, what happens, you know, how is the machine movie when a movie is so big and needs to be so big in order to be accomplished. And also small independent film in America and here, and it's the same system. That doesn't change by the territory, or then it's like artisan work, you know, and you have less time but maybe you have what you need to make that movie real. So I think I am lucky and privileged to be able to work, to experience all these different systems, all these different ways of making cinema, because I'm such a big fan of cinema.
Yeah. Let's talk about Parallel Mothers. You said you had like 4 months to prep for, you know, for the film and prep with Jenny's, but like talk about how that helped you as an actress. Like what were you doing those 4 months working with Pedro and crafting her?
So the first maybe the first month, it was all about, like Pedro said, drying our own tears. Like he didn't want our tears to mix with the ones of the characters. Janice, he wanted to create a personality that is affectionate, but not as much as maybe I am when I'm communicating with children or just in general, or with my friends. I'm like hugging and good. He didn't want any of that. He wanted to construct a personality that really had a different base, and that later has incredible conflicts that force her to hide even more her emotions, that force her to become a great liar in life. So everything that the script was moving in me, or in Milena, or in actually all the actors and actresses in the film, because the script was so good, we had to have a real period of time to be able to digest all of that and take away part of our own experiences, fears, traumas, hopes, whatever, part of who we are and what we have gone through, and just see what it was what it was from the character. How is that character going to relate to that, and how is it going to express it? And of course, that window would be open for your own things to come through, as long as they are not forced into the reality of the character. Or I don't work that way, of bringing specific phases of people around me or people that I care about. I'm forcing that feeling there into trying to provoke a state or an emotion in me. I try not to work that way, because I feel that is less honest. And if it works for some people, it's great. But for me, I feel like, no, let's leave that window open. I cannot fight that either. I cannot say nobody from my family or none of my real fears can come into this fiction. That is impossible. The more I fight it, the more it would come. But at the same time, I don't want to force it to come through. I want to be there with all that I am, but really be also an empty space for Janice, in this case, to be able to become alive and react to all these difficulties from a place that is hers, not mine. So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah.
Or what I'm going.
Yeah, she goes through such extremes, and as you said, you know, this conflict that, you know, you hope nobody has to go through, but she's such an incredible character. Talk about reading that script, and you know, every page, like, you know, there is this conflict, and it's unfolding, and then I'm just going to say the computer scene, where she finds out a horrible truth. Talk about that moment. Talk about getting to that moment and like acting that scene when she discovers something. I'm trying not to spoil it.
Yeah. But we can say some things.
Yes.
Well, reading that script, I experienced the same adrenaline trip that I think the audience experiences watching the movie and that I experience every day shooting. But I was very much fearing the scenes of the computer because it was acting along with a computer. And I was reading like real information that she would read. And we didn't rehearse. I just read it for the first time when we were shooting. And we did 3 or 4 takes. And he gave me freedom to try a lot of things, but considering that I could not move from a place, like it was a shot that was really, really tight and it had to react to 2 different news that are similar but not the same in 2 different scenes. So I was very worried about how in one close-up you react to something so extreme. You cannot leave the chair. You have to stay there and react there because I just wanted to destroy the room. You have to stay there. And that contention, and I don't know if that's the word, but my heart was going so fast at that moment. And then the second scene that is also in the computer, it was about like how to find something that is related, but it's already a different moment, because in the second scene, reading the news, she's starting to accept that that's the reality, but also she's starting to plan that she's gonna have to lie. She's gonna have to lie to some people that she loves. So all of that had to happen in one same shot, in a matter of 15 seconds. And it was really scary for me, but it was so exciting, to be able to have this material, this kind of scene.
And I mean, it's such an incredible cast. The women in the film are incredible. Talk about working with Milena, and there's, you've such an incredible bond, incredible chemistry. Like, you had during those 4 months, did you get to hang out together and,
there was not really time to hang out because we were there on set, and then I would try to leave that energy there and go home, my family, and try not to mix that energy. But even if you try, sometimes, of course, that would happen. But even if we were not having time to hang out outside the set, we didn't need to, because there was a connection from day one, from the day that Pedro put the 3 of us together. I felt that I could trust her, and she, I think, felt the same with me. And we were so comfortable with each other, in every way, like really there for each other. And Pedro was there like every step of the way, watching everything, seeing everything, saying the truth, like what was working, what wasn't working, but in a way that he can be tough, but he's never hurt me. He's always done it in a way that is like, of course, I don't like to hear when a take is not good and he is disappointed and he wants something else. But I want that from a director. And he's never done it in a way that was cruel, or with me, it's always been just honesty. That wasn't good. That was great. Moving on. Or sometimes even call me home and say, I think what you did today was good because this and that. And I would save those messages forever, because, to hear his voice saying that. But then I know when he says that, he really means it, because when he doesn't like something, we will know. And we will do as many takes as he needs. And that is a blessing, to have that. Because you go home at the end of the day feeling that at least you have tried to give your 100%. And somebody has been seeing everything and pushing you to do your best. And I'm so grateful to him for so much in my life.
Yeah. How do you prepare for a day when you know that you have to shoot a scene like the computer scene or the revelation scene where, you tell, you tell Anna that this, this mistake happened. Like, talk about that process.
We were very lucky to shoot in chronological order most of the time. Very lucky. So I was always looking at the calendar, like how many more weeks, how many more days until I have to say the truth. It was really scary, but at the same time, a part of me, like we were getting closer to that moment, and I needed to go through that for Janice, because Janice at that point needed to share that truth. She could not handle that weight on her like any longer, and the guilt, because she also loves Anna, and she's lying about the most sacred thing. But I needed for me also, like everything in me on a cellular level needed to experience that thing, to leave that behind, to speak that truth. And it was really scary. It's really scary to the point that some days I felt like I was possessed, like if I was rehearsing with the doll and the team, that department would come to take the doll to leave it there for the day after, I would have a reaction like, don't take the dolls from me. Or Milena and I would compete for the attention of the 1-year-old. Like in a little, like I'm not going to say manipulative game, because the girl was always like, it was always our priority that she was fine, that she never saw anything scary. We really took care of that, because that's the most important thing for me. When a kid is on the set, that is the priority. If the kid doesn't want to do it, we have to stop. Security, like in every sense of the word. But we realized months later that we had been competing for the attention of the little actress, the character. That she arrived there, and it was like, let's see who she wants to go with. And when I asked her that months later, she started laughing, and we both realized that, yeah, that was happening, which is a good sign that we were where we needed to be at that point. Pedro thinks that maybe too obsessed about it. I think I told you last time we talked, when after the confession, one of those days he had to literally pick me up from the floor because I could not come out of the to present time. I was stuck in the fiction, and I could not. It was about, like, not about Janice. It was, I went into a place of all the women that experience a threat of a loss with their children, or a loss of children. And I went to that place because that's where I needed to be. It was like something bigger than, of course, much bigger than myself, bigger than Janice, bigger than, it was, this has to have truth, because it has to honor the pain of the women that have gone through things like that. And I could not come out of it. And I needed Pedro to take me out. I didn't need anybody else. It was him. So I said, ask him to come. I need him to hug me. I need him to. And he came, and he was like really worried. And he helped me, like to come out with, come on. He got angry later, and he said, I want you to do the same thing without suffering this much. And that's what helped me to come out, because that's when I could start laughing and say, you are the last person on earth to give me that advice. You are not qualified to give me that advice, because every day you arrive to this set like if it was a question of life or death. And we had a beautiful moment there together, like laughing and hugging and crying, and just one of those unforgettable moments that I've shared with him.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a moment. But talk about like the makeup, the hair, the costume, and like the production design of it all. Like how much that helps you as an actress, and like the character. Like at what point when you're in that chair is the character coming alive?
It's a process. It happens gradually, but Pedro is there many months with every department, and everything that he selects, every material, every carpet, curtain, button, like, everything is there for a reason. And it helps me very much when I go into the real set and I discover the colors that he's choosing for the walls of a specific room. And nothing is there just because. You walk in and you feel a certain way. For example, in the hospital, when we give birth, he makes this choice of more pastel colors, the light yellow, the light blue, and it's kind of an illusion of an oasis of birth, maternity. They find each other. Everything is gonna be magical, but like somehow that's not gonna be the truth. But the way he uses the colors in that hospital gives you so much hope. And then the way he uses, for example, red in this film, he doesn't use it a lot, but when he's there, he doesn't talk about the theory behind why my jacket is red when I come back at night from hanging out with Arturo, or my sweater is red when I call the lawyer, and then I hang up because he's not there, but I start planning how I'm gonna lie out of survival, and I'm not gonna lose that girl. Red is there for a reason. I never torture him with questions about why this color, why this, but it's amazing to see from the inside the process, the selection of all these things. Or for example, with the music, I think what Alberto Iglesias has done with the soundtrack of this film is a masterpiece.
Yeah. I was so happy when he was nominated for an Oscar. What was that like, hearing his name?
Oh my God, it's the first name that they said. And so the announcements start like so high for us because we're like start announcing and they say Alberto Iglesias for Parallel Mothers. It was, I know Alberto for 20 years. I am a fan of him before his first movie with Julio Medem. I went to see a ballet with Nacho Duato and I heard something that was called Cautiva. And I was like, who is this genius? And I think Cautiva has been used later in some films, maybe also from Pedro. But it's like so unique.
Yeah,
what he does is incredible.
Yeah. Do you? It'll be afternoon in Spain, but do you tune in for the nominations, or do you just carry on with your day? Like, talk about.
We did, because Javier thought that we should do it that way this year, and I was like, no, this is not right. It's not right to see it live, because it's very. We were not expecting anything, but who knows? Maybe like Pedro could be nominated, like Alberto. See, like I don't know, some things. Maybe, who knows? And then I could not believe it when they said Alberto, and then they said Javier's name, and then they said my name also. I still don't understand what happened. I cried for 2 hours straight. My mom was on the phone. I think she was worried, and she came to see me if I was okay, because I was laughing and crying at the same time, because the meaning of the magic of being nominated the same year, it's incredible for us.
And what an incredible moment in their household, and for both of you. But I want to go back to Parallel Mothers, and you said you shot in chronological order. Like, how does that help you too when you're working on a role, or when you're playing a character that is so intense, versus doing another film that isn't done chronologically, and you could shoot the most traumatic scene at the beginning, and then talk about that process for you?
It has happened to me many times, and I don't like it. When I have to start with the end, I don't like it. I have such a resistance to that, but it's not up to me. So when it has to be like that, I try to use the positive in that, which is that I'm gonna feel so much information, and I'm gonna understand so much more by doing the end. Like, everything else that I do later will benefit from that, but it's not very natural. It's much harder for actors, I think, to start with the end. But half of the time is like that.
So let's talk about TV work. In American Crime Story, you played Donatella Versace, and you lived with this character for a really long time. What is that like, to live, you know, to be in a TV series and to get to play a character for months on end compared to like a movie where you're with them for not that long?
Amazing. It's what I love the most about doing that TV series. I mean, I loved every second of playing Donatella. The preparation process was with my dialect coach, with Tim Monique, who is a genius, to be able to have all this real material, to be able to call Donatella. Like, first of all, that's the first thing I did, was call her and say, do I have your blessings to play you? Because if I don't, I'm not going to do this. And she said to me, if somebody is going to play me, I'm happy that it's you, because I know that you will do it from a place of respect and love. And that's what I did. I mean, for me, that was sacred. And after that, and I told Ryan at the beginning, I said, I really want to say yes to this. This is so exciting. But first I have to call somebody. And he knew I was going to do that. And to play such a special woman, such an icon, to revisit, you know, their story. I never met Gianni, but I felt like if I knew him very well, I don't know. It's like to be able to spend that much time with a character, it's like a fantasy, a dream that I have, like to be able to do a movie where I can play her and to explore more of her life. I haven't told her that, but maybe, I mean, that I would only do that if she would agree. But it's an incredible story, the beauty of the relationship of that brother and sister. It's because I know now a lot about the story, and I only feel love and admiration for them. And it's so sad the way that Johnny lost his life, and the way that they lost him. And I feel very honored, you know, to have been able to play her. But you live so long with the character that a part of me feels stuck in that, like if I haven't finished. It's very strange.
Yeah. How do you shed a character? Like, how did you shed Janice and Donatella, even at the end, you know, when that was done? Like, what's your process for letting a character go?
What's your what?
Process for letting a character go.
It's a process. It doesn't happen on that day or on that week. And there is like a time where you feel a little bit lost in this planet, where even if you have, you know, of course, your life, your family, like you know where you are, and that is my total priority. But a part of you is affected by that, and it takes some time to say goodbye. And it doesn't happen on every movie. It also depends on your relationship with that character, how the experience of creating that has been. But sometimes it's a little scary how long it takes to go away. But I think it's a normal part of this.
Yeah. What are you looking for in your scripts and the roles that you play? Like, how has that changed? Like, when you get a script?
I look for something that represents a new challenge, a new lesson, and that represents something, a new step. The scarier, the better. Something that is not like me, is not like anybody else that I've played before. I look for that, and for stories that will shake something, that will inspire something. For example, I'm not interested in doing horror films. I'm not saying that can be a very interesting genre, and there are some films in that genre that are masterpieces. But it's not what I want to do, where I want to put my energy or my efforts, or which doesn't mean like I would want to play nice people all the time. No, it's not about that. But it's I feel like cinema is not there to change the world, but it can inspire so many things and open so many healthy debates.
Talk about Vicky Cristina Barcelona. You know, the film, you won your Oscar for that. Like, you know, we talked about the Oscars. What did that achievement mean to you? Like, when you hear your name being called out, an incredible year, but yeah, take us back.
It was incredible, and it was the first one of the night, which in a way I feel that I was lucky that it was like that, because I was so nervous. I was there holding my mother's hand and feeling like if I have to see through hours of this tension, and all I wanted was like not to faint. I was honestly worried about that because the adrenaline is so high, and to see all these women on stage, and it was an incredible night. I don't remember half of it because in that state, what happens later is that you try to remember, and your family and friends tell you, "Oh, you remember when this happened?" I don't know. I wasn't there. It's a very strong feeling, and what those moments are for are really opportunities to be grateful to the people that have believed in you from the beginning, that have given you the opportunity to make a living out of this, that have believed in me for, like, for example, Pedro. Imagine me doing things that I didn't myself imagine doing. He did before I imagined that I could do that. So there are always opportunities to thank those people for that. The family, the people that have been there, the people that didn't laugh when I said, I want to be an actress, and I was so young, and the fact that they didn't laugh and they said, okay, you can try, but it's not going to be easy. So it's what comes to me every time I'm nominated for something or I win something. It's all about like sharing it with the people that have been there and have made it possible. The fact that I have a job that I can live out of, the job that is my passion since I was a little girl.
Do that, what is it that you talked about the first, when you were on a movie set the first time, like what is it that you still love about walking onto a movie set, in 2022, 2021, and being in that environment, and that, living the life that your 4-year-old self had imagined?
I love the feeling of like going to the place where a lot of people together are gonna create something and are gonna like row in the same direction and are gonna try to build something together from scratch, and feeling part of a group, feeling part of a team. I love that so much. That's the part of my profession, the part of my job that gives me the real happiness. That and the research process.
Talk about the research that you did to play this mother in Parallel Mothers. Like, did you go out and speak to mothers who had gone through that trauma, or like, what's your typical research process like?
Well, here, because I was doing everything with Pedro, I didn't do that, because also I had been in, through other films, in contact with a lot of mothers in situations that were not Janice's situation, but maybe even worse. Like in Mama, a movie that I produced with Julio Medem, where I played a woman that was dying of breast cancer. So I was, working with 3 or 4 women that had children, and they had been given a diagnosis of you're not going to make it. So I spent time with some of them, and like it's amazing how through different movies I've been able to meet and spend time with so many different heroes and heroines, of life. And that is such a gift that this profession gives you, that those people will open their heart to you and share their story so that you can understand better on a different level what they are going through. But here, I didn't look for a specific woman, because also what happens to them in terms of having the babies exchanged at the hospital is a very rare thing, but it has happened. And a month after we finished the movie, there was like a new story in the news in Spain about two families in the south. They found out like many years later. So things happen.
You also did official competition alongside being reunited with Antonio Banderas. What is that like when you're like, okay, I'm doing this film, and then you find out your co-star is somebody that, you know, you've been acting alongside for a long time, like that chemistry and just being on a movie with him again?
So actually, we know each other since I was 20, when we were living in New York and we were neighbors, but we never had scenes together except for one cameo in Pedro's film Amantes Pasajeros. That's all we did together, because even in Pain and Glory, we were never a part of the same shot. So we were always wondering why nobody puts us together. It doesn't make sense. And now that we did, because we know each other so well for so long, it feels like we've done 20 movies together, but no. And sometimes Pedro is teasing us about doing a remake of Italian Marriage.
Oh my gosh, it's on
Matrimonio la Italiana. And he talks to us about that, and he doesn't realize like the excitement that we can feel when he brings that up. And I don't know if he will ever do it or if he's just joking to see our faces, but that would be incredible.
There you go. We're putting all the dream roles out there. And then you did, I think it was 2017, Loving Pablo. You starred with Javier in the film. What is that like when, you know, you're on a movie set acting alongside, you know, your other half, and what is that like as, you know, just separating the two worlds?
I love working with him, but we both agree that it's not something that we would do every 2 years or very often. Like, if something appears that is great and it makes sense for us to do together, we will, but not like back to back to back. I feel that's dangerous. But I always say, if we survived that one, where I could not stand him one more second with that mustache, and that the character was so cruel to my character. They were both pretty complicated people, but I mean, let's not forget he was playing Pablo Escobar, and we had very hardcore scenes. And it was, you know, by the end, it was. We didn't have personal problems because of that, but it was. I realized it was very tricky. And then we did another movie with Asghar Farhadi after Everybody Knows, which I love. I love that film, and I love working with Javier. But again, that one was pretty intense also. So see, like once in a while, it's a great thing to be able to do. I think he's an amazing actor. He's really, really. I've always thought that, even like 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I was like always talking about how impressed I was with every one of his performances. He's amazing. He can do everything. And now we know he can also sing, which I already knew, but he wouldn't believe it. And he sings amazing.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. It was like, wait, Javier sings? Oh my gosh. And the voice, but incredible.
Great voice.
I'm so glad you mentioned Everybody Knows. Asghar Farhadi is such an incredible director. What was it like working with, being on his movie set? Because he's a completely different way of working.
Yeah, but in a way similar to Pedro, because I consider them both the true artisans of cinema. You know, they're talking to you or they're talking to you. They're not going to be looking at their phone. They're not going to be doing 3 things at once. They're there totally present with you. And Asghar is, I mean, when I saw A Separation, I felt like, what do I have to do? Do I have to learn the language to be able to work with him? Because I would learn Farsi, whatever, like, let me know, whatever. And then he called us, and we were very surprised because we were both huge fans of his work. Huge. And it's great to be on his set, because he's there like just searching for truth from everybody, like whatever time that takes. And it's an incredible experience. And he's such a incredible man, great gentleman, so sweet with everyone. So he listens also very well. He's a great listener and a great poet. Like, you wake up in the morning and you're going to the set, and maybe you find an incredible message in your phone that is the key for that scene that you're going to do. And I really hope to repeat the experience of working with Asghar, because he's one of the most special people that I've met.
All right, we're going to do some fun questions now, Penelope. But like, what film changed your life? Like, is there a film that you're like, this film has had such an impact on me?
Well, I always say it's tie me up, tie me down, but I say that because it's true, because I like to go into the theater. I said I was 17, I was younger, and I had seen Pedro's films before, but not that one. And most of his films I would see at home, because we had a Betamax machine, and I had a copy of the card of the video store. So I would watch everything over and over. But when I saw that one, I felt like, okay, who is this human being? I need to meet him. I need to hug him. I need to say thank you. We're an incredible inspiration. How can all the actors be so amazing in his films? I was blown away by that movie, that story. Like, from the first frame to the last, Morricone's music, like the production design, everything, it was mind-blowing. And I came out of the theater and I took a walk by myself, and I decided to look for an agent, to look for a theater school, and to try. And I didn't care if somebody was going to say you're crazy. That moment, I decided to try.
You said you would like to do a musical, but would you like to do Broadway, like, or something like the West End stage, and just be in theater in a role like 8 days a week?
I was offered Broadway, and it was a great thing because it was Tennessee Williams. So of course, what an honor to be offered that. But I feel like I cannot do that while my kids are very young. I would like to do that in the future. When now I could not. And you're not going to do that for a month or 2 months. If you do that, I think you have to plan, like a longer time to really have that experience of living with that character and that play for many, many months. So in the future, I would love to. There are many plays that I want to do. And do musical on Broadway? I don't think so. I think there are people that are like millions of times more qualified than me to do a musical on Broadway. And I was offered that too, but it's different, like to do a film where I can, I will go to the studio to record my song, and I will train for 5 months, the dance numbers, but I don't feel qualified to do a musical in Broadway. But there are a few plays that are, like always in the back of my mind that I would like to do in the future.
Watch this space. In terms of like, what do you do to relax? Like, what is your go-to? Like, do you have a TV show or a movie that you're like, I just need to sit down and watch this? Like,
sometimes just to go back and watch something that, like the kind of feeling that you're going to get from that, even if you've seen it many times. And I used to do that as a little girl also. I would get a movie and just day after day after day, instead of going to the park to play after the school, I would sit there and watch the same movie. I would learn dialogues. So if I feel like I want to feel like a specific way, I would go to Billy Wilder or to Pedro or to James Brooks or to, I don't know, with, of course, the master and commander, Meryl Streep. That's something that I love doing. Like, if I have some time and say, okay, where am I going to go and watch again for the, 10th time or 10th or probably many more, and really study like everything that she has done, because I have no words.
Yeah. Do you read reviews like when your movies come out, or do you just stay away from that? Like, what's your thought on that?
I don't read everything, but sometimes I look at it the first few days. I want to know the temperature. And there are incredible reviews for Parallel Mothers, and some of those are like love letters to Pedro. And I've read some of those because I feel how beautiful, to give him back that. like you can see they are like true fans of his cinema, the same way I am a true fan of him. So some of those I read, but for example, I don't go into Google myself and all of that stuff, or like read comments on Instagram, like good or bad. I try to stay away from that. I don't think that cultivates anything good on anyone. To read the good things or the bad things, like it's equally dangerous, I think.
Yeah. What's next for you?
So right now I'm finishing the production of a Spanish film that is directed by my friend Juan Botto, who is a National Theatre Award this year, Premio Nacional de Teatro in Spain. And he is incredible. And I am producing his first film together with Morena Films. And we already have a first cut. Actually, today I saw the second version, and I could not be happier with this film. It's a very small film, but at the same time very big, because I mean, we had very little time and we had to shoot it in a way where it almost didn't happen. And it took us 5 years because of COVID in between, but we made it. And the movie, I think, is really gonna touch people's hearts. So I'm really, really proud of this film.
I love that you mentioned that, you know, you're a producer now. Like, talk about that transition, and what do you look for as a producer, like when you're attaching yourself to a project?
To be able to contribute to push some projects that maybe are, you know, stuck, but have like so many possibilities, but or new people, new writers, new directors, to be able to also maybe try to create an opportunity to do some characters that I've always wanted to do, and maybe it didn't happen, no? I feel it would be bad not to use the opportunity that I have now to be able to do that. I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't. And I don't want to try to produce like 3-4 movies per year. No, I know how much time it takes and dedication. And this is actually my second movie to date that I produced is En los Márgenes. And things take time and effort, and sometimes they fall apart. And little by little, and now I'm starting to put together a documentary that I'm directing and producing, and that is huge homage to women, and that is not easy for me to do because it moves a lot of things inside me, and I was running away from it, but at the same time pushing myself to do it. And I arrived to a point where I said, okay, it's now or never. And it's gonna take me probably 2 to 3 years because it's not easy and it's not a cheap one to do, and it needs like travels to places that are not easy to get to, and the kind of material that I need and the kind of testimony that I need. But I have a lot of people involved now that want to share their stories, and for me it's like a mission that I have, something that I have to do in this lifetime is this documentary. And I'm sorry that I say this and I am not telling you what it is about, but I don't feel ready yet to share that, because that will bring a lot of other questions that I feel I have to answer later, because I don't want it to be misunderstood.
Stay tuned. Penelope Cruz, congratulations on your Oscar nomination. And
Thank you.
On behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, thank you for sharing your experience, your process, and your craft with your fellow performers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I love this conversation with you. Thank you, really.
Thank you.